The war had ended, but peace was still uneasy. Across the stars, the Galactic Concord tried to keep balance between hundreds of species. They signed treaties, exchanged ambassadors, and sent guards to protect important rulers. Among those guards, humans had begun to appear more often. Some aliens found humans strange, loud, stubborn, and unpredictable. Others respected them for their courage. But one thing was clear: humans were useful when danger was near. They reacted fast, fought with unusual cleverness, and did not fear death the way many species did. Captain Elias Ward was one such human. He had fought in 3 wars already, seen comrades fall, and carried scars on his body and soul. When his commanders told him he was being reassigned, he expected another battlefield. Instead, he received new orders. He was to serve as the personal guard to Princess Serenia of the Elithari Empire. At first, Elias thought it was a mistake. He was a soldier, not a court attendant, yet the Concord believed the Elithari needed a protector who could think beyond ceremony. The Elithari were an ancient race, tall and graceful, with silver eyes and voices that carried music even when they spoke simple words. They were wise, but their courts were filled with whispers of betrayal. Elias boarded a silver transport ship and was taken to Elithar Prime, the shining capital world. From orbit, the planet looked like a jewel. Oceans glimmered like liquid sapphire, and cities rose like crystal towers. It was beautiful, but Elias knew beauty often hid danger. The palace stood at the center of the capital, carved from a single mountain of white stone. Spires reached the clouds, and glowing energy lines pulsed across the walls like veins of light. As the ship landed, Elias adjusted the collar of his black uniform. He carried no helmet, only his standard-issue sidearm. Weapons heavier than that were forbidden in the royal court. 2 Elithari guards met him at the landing platform. They were tall, armored in silver, and their long spears glowed faintly with plasma tips. Their faces, pale and calm, showed no welcome. "You are the human?" one asked, his voice smooth but cold. "Captain Elias Ward, Concord Defense Force," Elias said firmly. He did not bow, but he gave a short, respectful nod. "Assigned to Princess Serenia's detail." The guards exchanged glances, clearly unimpressed. Without another word, they turned and led him through vast hallways lined with statues and glowing murals. The palace smelled faintly of flowers, though no soil or plants were visible. Everywhere, Elias felt eyes on him. Servants in flowing robes paused to whisper. Nobles in jeweled attire looked him up and down with disapproval. Humans were still considered a young species, barely 2 centuries in space. To them, Elias was a blunt instrument walking in a hall of glass. At last, the guards brought him to a high chamber. The doors opened silently, revealing a room filled with soft light. A single figure stood near the balcony, gazing out at the city below, Princess Serenia. She was not what Elias expected. He had heard Elithari nobles were proud and cold, but she seemed different. Her long hair shimmered like liquid silver, her robes flowing like starlight. She turned to face him, and her eyes were not proud but calm, as if she carried secrets older than empires. The guards announced him and left, closing the doors behind. Elias stood straight, ready to speak the usual formal words, but Serenia raised her hand gently. "Captain Elias Ward," she said, her voice clear and soft, like the sound of water over stone. "I know who you are." Elias paused. "Then you know why I'm here, Your Highness. My orders are to serve as your guard." For a moment, Serenia simply studied him. Then she walked closer, her steps silent on the polished floor. When she was near enough, she spoke words that froze Elias in place. "I chose you long before they sent you." The words echoed in his mind, strange and heavy with meaning. He blinked, trying to understand. "I don't follow." "You chose me?" Her silver eyes met his. "Yes, you will learn in time," Elias frowned. He was a soldier, used to clear orders, not riddles, but he said nothing more. Serenia gave him a faint smile and gestured toward the balcony. "Do you see the city?" she asked. Elias stepped forward. Below, Elithar Prime shone in the evening light. Airships drifted between towers while bridges glowed with energy streams. It was peaceful, almost too perfect. "Beautiful place," he said. "Beauty can be fragile," Serenia whispered. "And there are those who wish to break it." Her tone carried a warning. Elias looked at her again, wondering if she spoke of enemies outside or traitors inside. That night, Elias was shown to his quarters. They were comfortable, more luxurious than he liked. He preferred a soldier's bunk, plain and simple. But here he had a soft bed, polished wood and quiet fountains trickling water in the corners. He could not sleep. Her words replayed in his head. I chose you long before they sent you. What did she mean? Had she read his file long ago and requested him? That seemed unlikely. Humans were rarely trusted with high nobility. Or was it something stranger, tied to the Elithari's rumored gift of foresight? As the hours passed, Elias decided one thing. Whatever Serenya's reason, his duty was clear. Protect her. Guard her life with his own if needed. But deep inside, he felt something he had not felt in years. Curiosity. The next morning, he followed her through the palace as she attended councils and ceremonies. The nobles watched him with dislike, whispering behind jeweled masks. Some Elithari guards sneered openly, muttering that a primitive human had no place beside their princess. Elias ignored them. When Serenya walked, he was always 2 steps behind, scanning the halls, watching every shadow. His instincts told him the palace was not safe. Guards looked loyal, but their eyes sometimes flickered with doubt. Servants moved too quickly, as if hiding secrets. Serenya never seemed worried. When Elias leaned close to warn her once about a suspicious noble, she simply gave him a calm smile. You see dangers others ignore, she said softly. That is why I chose you. Again those words. Elias did not reply, but his hand rested lightly on the grip of his sidearm, ready for whatever came next. By the end of the week, he had seen enough to know she was right. Beauty had cracks. Whispers grew like vines in the dark. Enemies lurked, both outside the palace and within. Days turned into weeks, and Captain Elias Ward settled into his new role inside the Elithari palace. On the surface, his duty was simple. Guard the princess, stand watch at her side, and ensure her safety. But he quickly learned that guarding Princess Serenya was nothing like guarding a soldier or a military leader. The battlefield was clear. Enemies came with weapons and banners. Here danger was hidden behind polite words, secret looks, and the soft steps of servants. The palace was alive with whispers. Nobles in flowing robes met in long corridors, their silver eyes watching Elias with disdain. Some spoke loudly, letting their voices carry just enough for him to hear. A human guard? An insult to the Elithari. They say the Concord forced him on her. Can you imagine? Entrusting the princess to a creature from a war planet. Elias ignored them. He had faced worse words in his life, and he knew one truth. Words could not kill, but daggers could. So he listened carefully, his senses always sharp. Every day, Serenya attended council meetings. She sat at the center, calm and graceful, while nobles argued over trade, fleets, and alliances. Elias stood close behind her, silent as stone. Most ignored him, but some nobles would glance at him as if he were a shadow that did not belong. One evening, after a long council, Serenya spoke to him as they walked back to her private chambers. You do not like the court, she said. I don't trust it, Elias replied simply. Too many eyes, too many tongues, too much poison. Her silver gaze lingered on him. You see more than others. That is why I chose you. Again those words. Elias still didn't understand, but he didn't press her. That same night, danger revealed itself for the first time. Elias had just finished checking Serenya's rooms when a servant arrived with a tray of drinks. The servant bowed low and placed the cups on the table. Serenya reached for one, but Elias's instincts screamed. He stepped forward, grabbing the cup before she could. He sniffed it. The smell was faint, almost hidden, but he recognized it. The metallic tang of poison. The servant's eyes widened in panic, but Elias moved fast. His hand caught the servant's wrist before the man could flee. What's in it? Elias growled. The servant stammered, his face pale. Before Elias could press further, Serenya raised her hand. Release him. Elias looked at her, shocked. Your Highness, release him, she repeated calmly. He does not know what he carries. Elias reluctantly let go. The servant ran out trembling. Serenya looked at the poisoned cup as if it were nothing unusual. This is only the beginning, she said softly. Elias clenched his fists. You expected this? Her eyes met his. Yes. From that night forward, the palace became a battlefield of shadows. Strange accidents happened. A balcony railing collapsed just as Serenya stepped near. A power conduit in the hall sparked with sudden fire. Once, a section of ceiling stone cracked loose above her path. Each time, Elias reacted with speed, pulling her back, shielding her, or spotting danger seconds before it struck. The Elethari guards began to notice. Some whispered that the human had unnatural reflexes. Others grew jealous, muttering that Elias made them look like fools. But Serenia said nothing. She continued her duties with calm grace, always keeping Elias near. At council sessions, Elias observed more carefully. He noticed one noble in particular, Lord Valen, whose eyes followed Serenia too closely, whose words always carried hidden sharpness. Valen spoke often about strengthening ties with the Concord, yet his smile never reached his eyes. One day, Elias caught Valen speaking quietly with another noble in a deserted corridor. He could not hear the words, but the quick exchange of a data crystal between them told him enough. When he reported this to Serenia later, she listened silently, then said, "Do not act yet. Watch. The truth will reveal itself." Elias gritted his teeth. He was a soldier who preferred action, not waiting, but he obeyed. Nights grew colder in the palace. Elias often stayed awake, sitting near Serenia's chamber door. Once Serenia herself came to the doorway and found him sitting with his weapon across his knees. "You do not sleep," she observed. "Sleep is weakness if danger walks in the dark," Elias answered for the first time. Serenia gave a small laugh, soft as wind chimes. "You are unlike any who came before. Others guarded me with their eyes, but you guard me with your whole being." Elias did not reply, but he felt a strange warmth inside. No commander in his wars had ever spoken to him like that. The next attempt came during a grand banquet. Nobles and ambassadors from many worlds filled the great hall. Music drifted from crystal instruments and lights shone like stars above the tables. Serenia sat at the head, Elias standing behind her chair. Halfway through the feast, Elias noticed something odd. A servant carried a covered dish toward Serenia's table, but his steps were too careful, his hands too tight on the tray. Elias's eyes narrowed. As the servant lifted the cover, Elias moved. In one swift motion, he knocked the tray aside. Hidden beneath the food was a small device, a shaped charge designed to explode with silent plasma. Gasps filled the hall. Elethari guards rushed forward, but Elias had already slammed the servant to the ground. "Who sent you?" he demanded. The servant's lips trembled. His eyes darted to the nobles watching. But before he could speak, his body stiffened and collapsed. A tiny dart was lodged in his neck, poison fast and final. Someone in the hall had silenced him. Chaos spread, but Serenia raised her hand. Her voice carried calm authority. "Enough. Return to order." The hall fell quiet, though unease remained. Elias scanned the crowd. He caught sight of Lord Valen's face, calm, too calm. Later that night, Elias confronted Serenia. "That man was silenced in front of us. Someone in your court is feeding killers into your palace. You know this, don't you?" Serenia's silver eyes glimmered in the dim light. "Yes, and so do you. Then why not act? Why not remove them?" Elias pressed. "Because truth must be revealed, not forced. If I strike blindly, I become like them. But if I wait, their mask will fall." Elias sighed. "And until then, you expect me to catch every knife thrown your way." Serenia's expression softened. "That is why I chose you," those words again. They unsettled him more each time. Did she truly mean she had chosen him specifically? Or was it some Elethari way of speaking? Still, Elias stayed at her side, sharper than ever. He began mapping the palace routes in his mind, marking blind corners, weak spots, and hidden doors. He questioned servants, checked security systems, and inspected food and water himself. The Elethari guards grew irritated. One confronted him directly. "You shame us, human. You act as if we cannot guard our own princess." Elias's voice was calm but hard. "If you could, she wouldn't need me." The guard's face flushed with anger, but he said no more. Elias knew he was making enemies not just among the nobles but among the soldiers as well. But he didn't care. His duty was to Serenia, and to her alone. One night, as stars shone above the palace, Serenia stood on her balcony, gazing at the horizon. Elias kept watch silently nearby. "Elias," she said softly, "you wonder why I spoke those words to you." He turned to her, his face unreadable. "I do." She looked at him with eyes full of hidden meaning. "One day you will understand. I saw you before you arrived. I knew you before you stood here. That is why I trust you more than any other." Elias felt a chill. "Saw me? Knew me how?" But she only smiled, turning her gaze back to the stars. "In time," Elias said nothing. Yet in his heart he knew two things with certainty. First, the palace was filled with enemies and the greatest danger had not yet shown itself. Second, the princess's strange words were no riddle. They were a promise, one that would change both their lives. The palace had become a nest of secrets. Elias Ward walked its halls every day, his senses sharpened by constant threats. Poisoned cups, hidden bombs, collapsing walls. Each attempt on Princess Serenya's life was more cunning than the last. And yet, through instinct, training, and sheer will, Elias kept her alive. But even he knew one truth. Luck never lasted forever. It was deep into the night when the next strike came. The palace was quiet, its halls lit only by soft silver lamps. Serenia had just retired to her private study, where she often read ancient scrolls. Elias stood near the door, watchful as always. A faint sound reached his ear, a scrape almost too soft to notice. Elias stiffened. He drew his sidearm and moved toward the corner. From the shadows, a figure leapt. Dagger in hand, cloaked in black, the assassin struck with speed. Elias reacted instantly. His arm shot out, deflecting the blade, but another figure came from the side. A third slipped in behind. It was an ambush. Elias fired once, the sharp crack echoing in the chamber. One attacker fell, but the others pressed hard. The fight was brutal, close, and fast. Elias blocked a strike with his forearm, pain shooting through his muscles, and countered with his elbow to the attacker's face. But in the chaos, he saw it. A dagger flashing toward Serenia. There was no time to think. Elias threw himself between her and the blade. It sank deep into his side, cutting fire into his flesh. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. His arm swung, knocking the attacker's weapon away. With a final burst of strength, he slammed the assassin into the wall until the figure collapsed. The last enemy fled, vanishing into the shadows. Silence fell. Elias staggered, his hand pressed against his wound. Warm blood seeped through his fingers. His vision blurred. "Captain." Serenia's voice was sharp with concern. She rushed to him, her calm mask gone. For the first time, Elias saw fear in her silver eyes. "Stay back," he muttered, his breath heavy. Could be more of them, but Serenia ignored him. She knelt, her hands hovering over his wound. Then she pressed her palms against his side. A strange warmth spread through him. Elias blinked, confused. What are you doing?" Her voice was steady now, though soft. "Saving you. The Elethari carry more than wisdom. We carry the sight of threads, and the power to mend what is broken." Light glowed faintly from her hands. Elias felt the burning pain fade, replaced by warmth like standing in sunlight. His vision cleared, though weakness still weighed on him. When he looked down, the wound was closing, the bleeding slowed. Not gone completely, but no longer deadly. Elias stared at her, shock written across his face. This is impossible." Serenia's gaze met his. "Not impossible, hidden. We do not reveal such things lightly." Elias breathed hard, trying to process. "Why tell me now?" Her answer was simple. "Because you must know the truth." "You wonder why I said I chose you long before they sent you?" Those words again. Elias swallowed, his throat dry. "Then explain it." "No more riddles." Serenia held his gaze. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then she spoke, her words heavy with meaning. "Our people see glimpses of what may come. We call them threads of fate. They appear in dreams and visions in the quiet moments between breaths. Years ago, I saw a vision of a man who would stand beside me when all else failed. A human, scarred by war, with eyes that carried both pain and fire. I saw you," Elias's heart pounded. "You saw me? Before I was chosen by the conquered?" "Yes," she said softly. "Long before they sent you, I already knew you would come. I did not know when or how, but I knew it was you. That is why I said those words. That is why I trust you above all others." Elias shook his head, trying to resist the weight of her words. He was a soldier. He believed in skill, in training, in decisions made moment by moment. Destiny was not something he accepted easily. "You expect me to believe all this? That my life was written in some vision?" he said harshly. Serenia did not flinch. "I do not expect belief. I only tell you what I know. You are here, as I saw, and you have already proven what the vision promised. You would shield me, even with your own blood." Elias looked away, his jaw tight. He wanted to deny it, to push her words aside. But deep inside, he could not forget the countless times she had spoken as if she already knew what would happen. The poison in the cup, the falling stone, the servant's trembling hands. Each time she had been calm, almost waiting for him to act. "You knew," he whispered. "Every time? You knew?" Serenya's voice softened. "I knew danger would come. I knew you would stand between me and the blade. That is the threat I saw. That is why I said I chose you." Elias leaned against the wall, still weak from blood loss despite her healing. His mind swirled. Was his life truly guided by some unseen hand? Or had she simply read him well, knowing what he would do? He didn't know. But one thing was certain. He could no longer dismiss her words as riddles. That night he rested under Serenya's watch, though it felt strange to be guarded by the one he was sworn to protect. She sat quietly nearby, her silver eyes glowing in the dim light. When dawn came, Elias rose slowly, his wound mostly sealed. He tested his movements, still sore but functional. Serenya studied him. "You doubt me still?" she said gently. "I doubt destiny," he replied. She gave a small smile. "Then do not think of it as destiny. Think of it as choice. You chose to shield me. I chose to trust you. Together those choices will shape what comes." Elias said nothing, but deep inside her words struck a chord. Over the following days their bond grew stronger. Serenya no longer treated him as just a guard. She spoke to him in private about her worries, her hopes, even her loneliness in the court. Elias, who had always kept his past locked away, found himself telling her of battles long gone, of comrades lost, of nights when he wondered if war would ever end. She listened without judgment, her calm presence easing the weight he carried, and slowly Elias realized something. He was no longer watching over her out of duty alone. He wanted to protect her, not because of orders, not even because of visions, but because of who she was. One evening, as they stood on the balcony, Serenya looked out at the horizon. The city lights sparkled like stars below. "The storm is coming," she said quietly. Elias frowned. "Another vision?" "Yes," she admitted. "The shadows grow bolder. What we have faced so far is only the beginning. Greater danger waits beyond the walls." Elias's hand rested on the grip of his weapon. "Then let them come. I'll be ready." Serenya turned to him, her silver eyes shining. "I know you will, because you are the one I saw, and you will not fail." Elias did not reply. But as he looked at her, standing tall against the night sky, he felt something he had not felt in years. Purpose. He was not just a soldier anymore. He was her shield. The calm of the Elethari palace shattered like glass one early morning. Captain Elias Ward stood on the balcony scanning the horizon. Usually the capital of Alether Prime was serene at dawn. Airships floated above crystal towers and the glowing bridges shimmered in soft light. But today something was wrong. Ships streaked through the sky, black and jagged, moving with brutal efficiency. The Korvac Dominion, a merciless conqueror race, had arrived. Their ships were unlike anything Elias had seen. Massive war machines bristling with weapons, cutting through the Elethari defenses with frightening precision. Elias spun to the palace interior. "Princess, get to the command center. We need to organize a defense." Serenya was already ahead of him, walking calmly through the palace corridors. Her silver robes flowed like liquid light, but there was no fear in her eyes. Only resolve. "Stay close," she said, her voice steady. "This is what we have prepared for." As they reached the command center, alarms blared. Screens lit up with alerts. Korvac ships had disabled the palace outer shields, striking at Elethari defensive satellites in orbit. It was clear. The Dominion intended a full-scale invasion, and the palace was the first target. Elias's jaw tightened. "They've disabled the shields. That means someone inside helped them." Serenya nodded. "I feared as much. The traitor is revealed." It was Lord Valen, the noble whose face Elias had memorized weeks ago. The man had been feeding information to the Dominion, providing ways to bypass Elethari defenses. Elias clenched his fists. The human soldiers in the palace were few, but they were disciplined and fierce. He had already trained them for this possibility. "Soldiers," he barked, "prepare for boarding. The enemy will hit the palace in minutes. Hold your ground." The soldiers snapped into action. Plasma rifles were raised, energy shields activated, and battle stations manned. Even some Elethari guards, initially reluctant, responded to Elias's command, impressed by his calm precision. Outside, the first Korvac boarding pods descended. Alien warriors, taller and heavily armored, crashed through palace walls with brute force. Explosions shook the corridors as security systems struggled to repel them. Elias moved through the chaos like a force of nature. One moment he blocked a plasma blade with his shield. The next he tackled an invader, disarming them and tossing them aside. Each step was calculated, every action precise. The palace guards watched in awe. They had never seen such fluid combat from a human. Serenia remained nearby, guiding soldiers, coordinating defenses and issuing commands with her calm authority. Despite the violence around them, she never raised her voice in panic. Her presence steadied the defenders. Through the smoke and fire, Elias spotted Lord Valen. The traitor was attempting to sabotage the palace energy core, a move that could destroy the entire throne room. Without hesitation, Elias charged. "Valen!" he shouted. The noble sneered. "You think you can stop me, human?" Their battle was brutal. Elias dodged energy blasts, countered with precise strikes, and pushed Valen toward the edge of a balcony. Sparks flew as weapons clashed. Finally, with a powerful shove, Elias sent Valen crashing into a wall. The traitor slumped, defeated but still alive, bound by his own arrogance. Meanwhile, the Korvac forces pressed onward. One massive warrior blocked the hallway, its armor glowing with alien energy. Elias approached carefully, assessing weaknesses. In a split second, he feinted left and struck the warrior's joint, disabling its weapon arm. The invader stumbled, giving Elethari soldiers the opening to neutralize it. Serenia approached him as the hallway cleared. "You are extraordinary," she said, though her voice carried concern. "Even more than I foresaw." Elias shook his head, catching his breath. "I only do what I must. That is all." But even as they fought side by side, the true danger was not yet revealed. From the palace tower, a massive shadow fell across the city. A Korvac super warship descended, its weapons aimed at the capital. It was designed to flatten the city in minutes, making the ground forces irrelevant. "Elias," Serenia said, her silver eyes sharp, "we cannot hold them here forever. We need a plan, and quickly." Elias scanned the map, calculating. "We draw them into the lower corridors. We use the palace itself against them. Narrow passages, traps, energy barriers, they won't move fast here. And I'll lead the charge," Serenia nodded. "Do what you must. I will be at the throne room with the remaining soldiers coordinating defenses." The palace became a battlefield. Elias moved with unmatched speed, guiding soldiers, setting traps, and intercepting invaders. Elethari guards, inspired by his leadership, fought with renewed courage. Humans and aliens alike formed a unit that was impossible to break. Despite their efforts, the Korvac forces pressed relentlessly. They were ruthless, and their numbers seemed endless. But Elias had something they did not: instinct and unpredictability. Humans did not follow conventional rules of battle. They improvised, adapted, and exploited openings that others would ignore. At one critical moment, a Korvac officer attempted to flank Serenia's position. Elias intercepted, throwing himself in front of the attack. Sparks flew as his blade met the alien weapon, and the officer was forced back. The princess gave him a nod of appreciation, her trust in him absolute. But the fight was far from over. The super warship above fired a massive energy beam, striking the outer walls and collapsing one of the palace towers. Debris fell like deadly rain. Soldiers screamed, running for cover. Elias caught a fallen Elethari guard, lifting him from the rubble before it crushed him. Serenia moved with him through the chaos, her calm demeanor guiding the defenders. She spoke to soldiers with precision, ensuring that every evacuation route and counterattack was utilized. Even in the face of destruction, Elias realized something profound. The princess was not merely a leader. She was the soul of the Elethari, their strength and courage made tangible. Protecting her was not only duty. It was survival. Hours passed. The palace walls shook, fires spread, and yet the defenders held. The Korvac forces, confident at first, began to falter. They had underestimated human cunning, Elethari resilience, and the bond between the princess and her guard. Elias led a final push toward the enemy commander stationed in the central hall. Using a combination of human strategy and palace knowledge, he cornered the invader. With a decisive strike, the Korvac commander fell, his forces disoriented and leaderless. The remaining Korvac soldiers began to retreat. Elethari and human defenders cheered, exhausted but victorious. When the battle ended, Elias and Serenia stood together amidst the smoke and ruins. The palace was damaged, but the city below had been saved. Serenia placed her hand on his shoulder. "You have done more than I ever imagined. The Elithari owe you their lives. Elias shook his head. I only did what had to be done. You would have done the same for your people. She smiled, though exhaustion was visible in her features. Perhaps, but I did not see it happen until it happened, and now I understand. The thread of fate was right. You were always meant to stand here by my side. Elias finally allowed himself a small smile. The bond they had formed was no longer about duty alone. It was trust, respect, and perhaps something more. Outside, the sun rose over Elithar Prime, casting light on a city that had survived impossible odds. The Concord Watchers would arrive soon, but for now the palace was theirs. And at its heart stood a human and an alien princess, bound by fate, courage, and unshakable trust. The war was over for now, but Elias knew that greater threats would come. Yet he was ready. With Serenia at his side, no enemy could break them. The palace of Elithar Prime was quiet now, but the silence was fragile. Outside, the city lay in ruins from the Korvac invasion. Fire still burned in the streets and the sky was streaked with smoke. The Elithari and human defenders were exhausted, but victory had been claimed, for now. Captain Elias Ward walked through the damaged halls, his uniform scorched, his face streaked with sweat and ash. Despite the exhaustion, he moved with careful precision, scanning every corner. Even after defeating the invaders, he knew the threat was not completely gone. Elias, Serenia called softly, her voice echoing through the high hallways. He turned. The princess stood at the balcony of the central tower overlooking the city. Her silver robes were torn in places, her hair disheveled, but her presence was unshakable. The calm authority that had guided their people during the invasion still radiated from her. I thought the worst was over, Elias said, stepping toward her. Serenia shook her head. The worst is yet to come. I saw it in the threads of choices, of fate, of what may happen next. But we can face it, he frowned. We? You mean you and me? She smiled faintly. Yes, you are not only my guard, Elias. You are the shield that holds the line. Without you, none of this would have been possible. The words echoed in his mind, reminding him of the first day she had said, I chose you long before they sent you. For weeks, he had struggled to understand their meaning. Now in the aftermath of battle, their truth was undeniable. The palace alarm sounded. Another wave of Korvac ships appeared on the horizon. They had underestimated the defenders once, but they were relentless. Elias gritted his teeth. More enemies? He asked. Serenia nodded. The commander I thought defeated is gone, but his generals live. They will try again. Elias moved beside her. Then we prepare again. This time, we end it before it begins. Inside the command room, Elithari soldiers, human reinforcements, and surviving palace guards gathered. Elias coordinated defenses, mapped out traps, and set squads at critical choke points. Every corner of the palace had been transformed into a strategic stronghold. Outside, the enemy ships descended. This time, Elias and Serenia were ready. The first Korvac soldiers attempted a direct assault on the palace gates, but human ingenuity and Elithari energy barriers stopped them cold. Elias led the counterattack personally. His movements were a mix of instinct and experience, dodging blasts, disabling attackers, and guiding soldiers. Every step was precise, every strike deadly. The alien defenders, inspired by his courage, fought with unmatched determination. Serenia remained at the central command post, directing reinforcements and controlling the palace defenses. From there, she could see the battlefield clearly, predicting the moves of the enemy as if she had seen them before. Her threads of fate guided her, but Elias's skill and instinct executed her plans perfectly. Hours passed. The Korvac forces, once confident, began to falter. Their attacks were repelled, their numbers diminished. Yet one massive force remained. The enemy commander, a towering alien with multiple arms and a deadly energy blade, approached the throne room itself. Elias met him head-on. The clash was brutal. Plasma blades clanged, sparks flew, and the floor beneath them shook with each strike. Elias dodged and parried, using every ounce of strength he had left. The commander was strong, relentless, and precise, nothing like he had faced before. But Elias had one advantage the alien could not anticipate: unpredictability. Human strategy was flexible. He feinted, dodged, and struck in patterns the enemy did not understand. Finally, with a calculated move, Elias disarmed the commander and drove him back. The invader stumbled, stunned, and fell to the floor. The remaining Korvac soldiers froze, leaderless. Some attempted to retreat, others surrendered. The battle was over. Elias lowered his weapon, breathing heavily. The palace was quiet, but only momentarily. The cost was high. Walls were damaged, soldiers were injured, and Elethari citizens had fled the city to safer zones. Yet the victory was theirs. Serenia approached him. Her silver eyes shone with relief and pride. "You did it, Elias. You saved my people. You saved the palace. You saved me." Elias shook his head, still catching his breath. "We did it, Your Highness. I only did what had to be done. You guided us. Without your direction, none of this would have been possible." She placed her hand on his shoulder. "I foresaw many things, but not the courage you showed. That is why I chose you long before they sent you. Not because the Concord assigned you, but because fate knew what I needed. A human who could stand where no one else would." Elias looked at her, finally understanding the depth of her words. From the first day in the palace to the endless battles that followed, he had been more than a guard. He had been a protector, a partner, and now, a part of her people's survival story. For a long moment, they stood silently, watching the sun rise over the city. The golden light illuminated the damage but also the resilience of Elethar Prime. The city would rebuild. The palace would rise again. And the Elethari would remember the courage of the human who had stood beside their princess. Serenia turned to him. "The Concord will arrive soon to assess the situation. They will hear of what you have done, Elias Ward. But know this, they will never understand the bond we share, the trust we have built. That is something only fate could create." Elias nodded. "I don't need recognition. I only need to know that you and your people are safe." She smiled faintly. "And they are because of you. Because of us." As the days passed, the palace began repairs. Elethari citizens returned cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. The Concord envoys arrived, astonished at the palace's defense and the humans' role in saving it. Stories spread quickly. A human guard, underestimated and mocked by alien nobles, had turned the tide of war. Elias stood quietly as the reports were made. He did not seek glory. He had a mission and he had fulfilled it. But inside he felt something he had never felt before. Belonging. Serenia came to him one evening, placing a hand on his arm. "You chose to stay even when the threads of fate were unclear. You chose to fight even when the enemy seemed unstoppable. That is why I trust you more than anyone. That is why I chose you." Elias looked into her eyes, seeing gratitude, respect, and something deeper. "Then fate made the right choice," he said softly. The two stood together, watching the city glow beneath the evening sky. The battles were over, but the story of their courage and bond would be remembered across the galaxy. Elethar Prime had survived the storm. The Elethari people had hope, and Captain Elias Ward, the human guard who had been chosen long before he arrived, had found his place, not only as protector, but as a hero, and perhaps as something even more.